welcome to this week's engineering announcements from the IBA. The trade figures for 1986. Peter Ashforth and Pat Hawker discuss the consumer electronics boom. In transmitter news, independent local radio reaches Derby. The latest relays to be equipped for Channel 4 and details of 2 new relays, in Dorset, Chilfram, and in Devon, CLENNON Valley. But first, over to Peter Ashforth.
You've been looking at the trade figures for the whole of 1986, Pat, and I gather that, perhaps surprisingly, 1986 has turned out to be a record boom year for the trade.
It certainly was. The whole of the sort of consumer electronics field did very well indeed, and one could quote, for instance, colour television sets chalking up an all-time record of something like 3.9 million deliveries.
What about some of the other branches of the trade? Let's have a look, for example, at compact disc players, which is a very new and growing field.
Well, Bremer make the interesting statement that this has been the fastest growing consumer electronics market ever. And in fact, there was something like a 5-fold increase in players last year, so that by the end of the year, the estimate is that there's about 750,000 players in homes, and this has brought up the whole of the sales of things like audio equipment and entertainment equipment.
This really is quite remarkable given the circumstances. The increasing compact disc penetration is greater than, say, it was for VCRs, what, 3-4 years ago?
Well, the rate of increase, the actual penetration for a comparative time it's been on the market, yes, I would say greater. But of course, the VCR has been a really remarkable, fast-growing market. And in fact, last year, it came right back again up to the peak of a couple of years ago or so with something over 2.2 million deliveries. And Bremer estimate that the trade should be able to expect to sell something like, or rent something like 2 million a year for several years to come.
So any talk about the market in VCRs plateauing out has just not been borne out?
Well, it did, as I say, it plateaued out, and there was a sort of slight recession a couple of years ago. But now it's back on a high level that looks like being a sustainable level.
It sounds as though there have been advances on all fronts. Let's look at home video gear, for example, which is very popular these days.
Well, there's the camcorder. That, again, has been doing much better, although, of course, in actual unit numbers, I think it's around about 90,000. It doesn't compare with the VCRs, basically, but certainly a major increase last year.
This, of course, is all excellent news for the trade, but I suppose really one depressing feature of all this is that virtually all this equipment is imported.
Well, there's, of course, you must remember, in colour television sets, particularly the big screen ones, there is still a majority of sets are made in Britain, although, again, quite a lot of that consists of components brought in from the Far East. And there are signs of British assembly coming in quite a number of the other fields. VCRs now, quite a bit of assembly work here. Partly because of course, the exchange rate with the yen.
Yes, well, that's quite heartening. What do you put all this down to, Pat, this continued boom in consumer electronics?
Well, certainly there is a greater real disposable income by people, and also the fact that, for instance, that the inflation has slightly increased again, and people in circumstances like that feel that it's better to have products in the home rather than to have money in the bank. And again, of course, also in times of inflation, you also have the feeling that if you can get credit, and certainly the credit figures for 1986 are rather alarming. There's been something like an increase of 14% in consumer credit. Maybe there will be a price to pay for that later.
Well, certainly at the moment it doesn't seem as though 1987 is going to be particularly any different, but we'll have to see. Thanks very much, Pat.
Transmitter news now, starting with special announcements. In Cornwall, the main station at Redruth is off this morning between 9:30 and midday for electrical maintenance. This will also affect the dependent relays. Also in Cornwall, Lostwithiel is off today from 9:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. for an electrical inspection. In Suffolk, the relay at Aldborough is off this morning between 10 and midday for electrical maintenance. And there's electricity board maintenance today at Upavon on the Salisbury Plain, which is off between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. At Kilmacolm in Strathclyde, which is off from 9:15 until midday, and at Gilfachgoch, northwest of Bridgend in South Wales, which is off this afternoon between 1 and 4 p.m. This evening, Signal Radio's medium wave service in Stoke on 1170 kHz will be off from 8 p.m. until midnight, but the VHF service will continue on 102.6 MHz.
Then early tomorrow morning, County Sound's VHF service to Guildford will be off from 15 minutes past midnight until 5 a.m. for work on the aerial feeders. The medium wave service on 1476 kHz will not be affected. Back to television, and in Dyfed, Tenby will be off tomorrow from 9:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. for electricity board maintenance. And for the same reason, Ardin Tool at Loch Alsh in the Highland region will be off tomorrow afternoon between 1:30 and 4:30.
On Thursday in Devon, the Totnes relay will be off between 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. for an electrical inspection. In the Wye Valley, Tintern will be off on Thursday from 8:30 in the morning until 4 p.m. for work by the Electricity Board. And there's also Electricity Board maintenance in Wrexham, and the S4C service from Wrexham Ross and Marcher Sound's VHF service on 95.4 MHz will be off on Thursday between 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.
Radio news next, with a major extension to Radio Trent's Nottingham coverage. The company's new franchise now includes the Derby area, with new transmitters installed at Quorndon, about 3 miles northwest of Derby. The total survey area is increased to about 1.8 million with the new transmitters operational. In the new area, the VHF service is on 102.8 MHz in stereo, with medium wave on 945 kHz. Trade tests are now in full swing, with programmes beginning on the 3rd of March.
New relays now, and expected in early March in Dorset, Chilfram. This is for about 420 people in Maiden Newton, Cattistock, Chilfram, Frome St Quinton and part of Wroxall and Holywell. Programmes from HTV West and TVAM will be on Channel 45 with Channel 4 on 52. The aerial group is B and the polarisation here is horizontal. Chilfram is expected on the air in early March.
But in Torbay, the Clennon Valley relay has been delayed and is now expected in late March. It's for about 1,100 people in parts of Clennon Valley and Totnes Road, Paynton. Programmes from TSW and TVAM will be on Channel 49, with Channel 4 on 42. Group B aerials are needed, vertically polarised. Clennon Valley has been delayed and is now expected on the air in late March.
Channel 4 next, and now on the air. In Scotland, Braemar on Channel 49. In Derbyshire, Chinley on 67. And in Cornwall, Looe on 50. These 3 stations add another 2,500 people to Channel 4's coverage. Expected on the air later this week. In Derbyshire, Hope on Channel 32, and this relay will bring Channel 4 to another 1,000 people. Hope to be ready towards the end of next week. In Wiltshire, Till Valley on Channel 50. In Northumberland, Catton Beacon on 50. And in County Durham, Headley Hope also on 50. And delayed a little on South Uist, Kilbride on Channel 42.
And that's all for this week. But if you have any technical queries on independent television or local radio, do contact us. Our address, Engineering Information Service, Independent Broadcasting Authority, Crawley Court, Winchester, Hampshire, postcode SO21 2QA. You can telephone our inquiry office on Winchester, area code 0962 822444. If it's cheaper, you can dial our London number 584 7011 and ask for engineering information. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 9:15 and also at 12:15 in all regions except Wales. So from Janet Smythe and from me, John Lovell, goodbye until next week.